The context. On or around November 22, 2025, a large amount of talents from the VTubing agency LuckyEN have suddenly removed the LuckyEN tags on their Twitter accounts, with an estimated 10 talents suddenly dropping out of the agency. Two of its talents, Shiro and Akuma Miko, released brief statements regarding this exodus, stating that because internal affairs have been getting ugly, they're choosing to leave the agency. The next day, a user by the name of The Dawn of Everything would make a statement regarding the exodus, as they were asked by multiple individuals to investigate the situation. Dawn would claim that, after listening to testimonies from multiple talents, they concluded that a manager of LuckyEN was allegedly so unprofessional with the talents that the talents quickly made exit plans to avoid dealing with this manager. Dawn would also state that LuckyEN as an agency was not in fact a real registered agency. A user by the name of Mizatamari would make a counter statement regarding Dawn's claims, claiming that Dawn instigated drama in the agency by forcing a narrative upon the talents that makes them believe that they've been abused by the agency, and that the overall goal was to make a call out against the agency to stir drama in the VTubing community. This is one of many interactions highlighted later on in this video. On November 27, 2025, a former LuckyEN talent by the name of Saturn Senshi released a massive document of over 200 pages. Its purpose is to call out three distinct parties: LuckyEN, Raging Bull, the manager/CEO of said agency, and the Defenders faction, former LuckyEN members who allegedly assisted in shifting blame and slandering those who spoke out. The accusations. The document itself is divided into two main sections. The first section focuses on detailing Rage's behavior as a manager of LuckyEN, alleging that Rage's lack of professionalism in both business and personal ways, and failure to stop the doxing of individuals, has led the agency to its downfall, as the mass exodus allegedly occurred due to these behaviors. The second section focuses on the allegations and claims made from the Defenders faction of LuckyEN, by documenting alleged acts of hostility and harassers towards ex-talents in an attempt to silence them and shift blame elsewhere. The history. Around fall of 2025, a group of individuals began privately discussing their experiences with Rage acting as a manager/CEO of LuckyEN. The group allegedly found that a consistent pattern of harassment, managerial abuse, and doxing consistently occurred across these individuals. The document states that LuckyEN was never registered as an LLC and had no legal protections, contracts, or structures in place as a result, despite Rage's claims over calls otherwise. Rage would make a statement regarding the situation in the server, where he would claim that he never meant to upset individuals, admitted that he didn't know how business law worked to form an LLC, ultimately downplayed his alleged sexual misconduct, and stood his ground on the 5% revenue fee on talents. The testimonies. 7 individuals provided testimonies to their experience with Rage and LuckyEN, with 4 of them being former LuckyEN talents, 2 of them being approached by Rage, and Dawn himself. Going down the list, Kitsura Nines, a former member of VTards, was approached by Rage to potentially join LuckyEN. Nines would state that Rage brought up the 5% revenue fee that would allegedly go towards licensing fees and other expenses, though when asked about seeing the contract, she would not receive one. Nines would get approached again regarding VTard collection figurines, but she would get very suspicious due to the circumstances, and would ultimately decline the offer due to a lack of contract. She would later find out that LuckyEN was never a registered company. Dolly, a former LuckyEN member, discussed Rage's gradual escalation to sexual harassment and behavior towards Dolly, stating that Rage manipulated her into NSFW conversations, allegedly knowing of Dolly's personal trauma regarding the nature of these behaviors. These conversations spanned over 122 pages of this document, highlighting the extensive period of NSFW behaviors and conversations that Dolly, due to reverting back to her traumatic experiences, ended up willingly going along with. She would apologize for doing so in her section. Nachizu Miku, a former member of VTards, had a brief experience with Rage regarding the previously mentioned VTard figurines collection, where Rage asked Nachizo for IP rights to create these figurines in exchange for 5% of profits, which was later negotiated to 20%. Nachizo asked for a contract, to which Rage adamantly refused to produce or sign one, insisting that screenshots of their DMs was more than enough for legal protections. The deal would fall flat as a result. Saturn would include her own experience with Rage as well, stating that the two initially had positive relations with one another through the Under the Tea podcast, and was invited to join LuckyEN. Initially refusing and sticking with her friend Akumi due to her skepticism of the agency, Saturn would get another offer after her friendship ended with Akumi, to which she chose to move forward to onboarding with Shirawan. During the onboarding process, Saturn highlighted some odd odd and concerning moments, such as leaking of private information. Saturn would point out 2 instances where Rage harassed her, one of them being that he got moderator status on her Twitch, and another one being verbally abusive towards her. Saturn would link various instances of Rage posting questionable gifs, comments, parasocial behaviors, harassment, and other oddities towards her. Shiro, a former LuckyEN member, would focus her testimony on the abusive and exploitive actions that Rage allegedly committed, getting grilled over a retweet that ended with Rage bad-mouthing her later on, along with various exploitive DMs between the 2 individuals. The main problem Shiro had with Rage involved the VTards figurines deal, where Rage expected Shiro to handle all financial, accounting, and responsibility instead of Rage and LuckyEN, where Rage would essentially gain all the credit as the supposed manager of the project. This deal ended up never going through. Dawn would include their testimony in this document as well, discussing their short interactions with Rage regarding a few individuals, where Dawn would point out Rage's questionable and shady behaviors as someone claiming to be a legitimate manager / CEO of a VTubing agency. Once Dawn was reached out to by StarCat regarding Rage's behavior, Dawn would pull in 2 people close to Miko to discuss their findings. After informing Shiro and Saturn about the issues with Rage, Dawn claimed that the rest of the talents started producing testimonies that ended up lining up with Dawn's previous findings in a Discord server, referred to in this document as the testimony server. Atari, a former LuckyEN member, would be included in a separate section of the document, but would speak about Atari's experiences with Rage during an SCP event, where Atari claimed that Rage was consistently attempting to steal the spotlight during the event. Rage would allegedly poor shame Atari and exhibited predatory behaviors. The Defenders. During the exit planning from the talents, 4 individuals suddenly opted out of these plans, choosing to delete their messages in the testimony server and beginning to shift blame on some of the LuckyEN members. These individuals would be identified by Dawn through a voice chat involving Rage, where Dawn would inform the testimony server of the so-called Defenders faction. This faction intended to restructure LuckyEN by removing Rage as the manager, but would also begin accusing the former LuckyEN talents and staff of various negative actions. StarCat, one of the main members of this faction, would be the one to make the situation public by vague posting about feeling overworked and abused, where Miko, another member of this faction, urges StarCat to address this vague post, implying that the post was certainly about LuckyEN. StarCat focused on accusing Dawn of threatening and harassing her during the testimony server arc, claiming that Dawn did their investigations as a way to potentially overthrow current management. It would turn out that StarCat was the one to initiate Dawn's investigations in the first place. StarCat would make a final post regarding the situation, where she claimed that she had no ill will towards anyone in this situation, and that the Exodus was planned to be silent, but quickly grew out of control. The document would point out various DMs between Rage and StarCat, and refusing claims made by StarCat in an attempt to slander the ex-talents of LuckyEN. 2 individuals, Neven and Kodiak, would produce short testimonies claiming that StarCat was attempting to manipulate the narrative of the situation by cherry-picking screenshots and playing as a double agent. The document linked a VOD from Mama Oko, who went over the situation, where he stated that, while Rage was unprofessional as a manager, he believed that Rage was poor at communication, instead of having malicious intent behind what he was saying. Oko claimed that the VTards group made the situation public in the first place, and shifted the blame towards the group and the non-Defenders faction. The document pointed out several alleged contradictions regarding Oko's stance against VTards, by showcasing how he wanted the ex-members of VTards to join the LuckyEN agency and welcome them with open arms, despite claiming that those members were quote-unquote evil, along with other moments of admission such as allowing doxed information to stay up and LuckyEN not being a registered business. Mizu's claims focused on blaming the ex-VTard members for wanting to retaliate against the Under the Tea podcast over alleged doxing information on the server that he claimed to have never existed in the first place. The document would aim to quickly refute that claim by showcasing various screenshots acknowledging the doxing material and the server not deleting it. Mizu claimed to remain on the sidelines regarding the situation, but would quickly choose to post about it shortly after. Junie would block the individuals trying to leave LuckyEN and be one of 2 managers trying to restructure LuckyEN. Junie would vaguely discuss the situation in one of her streams, where she states that the group had fundamental issues that needed restructuring, most members handled the situation privately, people outside the situation are speculating about her personally, and stated that she plans to review this Google Doc later on. The document alleges that Junie voted in favor of making the document public in the first place, and showed a screenshot of one of her mods threatening to kill Rage once they found out about his actions. Miko would be the last defender in this section, where she joined StarCat in accusing Dawn of clearly threatening StarCat. acting as her moral support. The document would compare Dawn's threat of telling the ex-VTards group about the situation versus Miko's direct threat towards Saturn in a Twitter reply. The document would also show Miko's very vocal behavior in the testimony server, wanting to go public about departing despite claiming otherwise. Miko would share her strong disdain towards Rage and LuckyEN through various statements and screenshots sent in the testimony server, especially focusing on Rage's predatory behaviors. The aftermath. The majority of people expressed support towards Saturn and the individuals involved, wishing everyone the best in their indie endeavors. As of this video, the LuckyEN Twitter account has essentially been nuked. No new updates have been made from the account, but there is a chance the account may produce updates later down the line. Mizu would make a few tweets regarding the document, but has since focused on their own ventures. The former members of LuckyEN who are part of the Exodus remain in good relations with one another. It is unclear as to whether more information will come out regarding this situation, but regardless of whether that information comes out or not, do not harass anyone in and outside of this video.